And we're coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker here at Area 52. This is Pastor Mike. I've had a busy week so far this week, but so far it has been a productive week. Of course, I haven't really produced anything. Today is the first day back, I guess, as it were, on our broadcasting schedule from all the time off I took last week, the week before last, for camp, for vacation, this and that and the other. I am ready to come back to work. And come back to work I have. I spent most of the day yesterday working on finishing the script for the Watchman video broadcast, the Comic Con. I didn't have the script finished, and I had already recorded part 2, as you know, or should be informed, last week when, before I left for my sweetie pie and I's little second honeymoon. I recorded a Watchman broadcast, and my daughter tells me the sound is no good. We had trouble last Tuesday with the Pastor Mike Online broadcast. We had to cut it off. I was sick Monday during the broadcast. I had to go home early, and it just seemed like everything that I was doing last week was being frustrated for some reason or another. And so far this week it's turned out pretty good, and I'm glad to have you online with us. We are going to be talking about some very serious things that are going on right now. If you follow my Twitter account, you'll note that I talked about, we were going to talk about nation against nation. And that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to handle what is going on with the Trayvon Martin situation and ask the question, is there racism still in America? The answer, of course, is yes. Is there racism anywhere else in the world? And the answer absolutely is yes. And I'm going to say some things today. It's probably going to make some people mad. And I'm going to rebuke some people, not by name per se, other than the El Presidente. I'm going to rebuke him by name. But I'm going to give some scriptures of rebuke to some folks and how they have acted, or shall I say reacted, to the George Zimmerman trial and the verdict and the Trayvon Martin shooting and all the protests that are going on. There's a lot of biblical things to say about this. And I will tell you something that should be obvious to everybody. The Bible nowhere tells anybody to be a racist. It doesn't tell us to do that. And I'll get into the scriptures here in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of cover the headlines of what's been going on. You've seen, if you pull up the Drudge Report, this is what you see. Let's see here. America gripped by second night of fury over not guilty verdict for neighborhood watchman who shot black teenager armed only with a bag of Skittles. Protests spread across the country Saturday or Sunday. In his second day of demonstrations in the wake of the sensational not guilty verdict for George Zimmerman after he shot dead unarmed teenager Trayvon Martin. Demonstrations from Florida, where the trial took place, to Atlanta, D.C., and New York remained largely peaceful so far. Though Los Angeles protesters managed to shut down an entire freeway, and thousands of New Yorkers mobbed Times Square and blocked traffic for an hour. Emotional crowds screamed justice for Trayvon and carried signs that likened the struggle of the slain teen and his supporters to that of the original civil rights movement. That is from the dailymail.co.uk. Here is another one. Stevie Wonder boycotting Florida following Zimmerman verdict. I wonder what it would take to get Stevie Wonder to not come to Festus. The singer refuses to perform in the state until its Stand Your Ground law is abolished. In the wake of the George Zimmerman acquittal, the singer said, speaking of Stevie the Wonder, the singer said he would not be performing in the Sunshine State until its Stand Your Ground law is abolished. He also said he would not be performing in any other state that recognizes the law, which some say contributed to Zimmerman's acquittal and the shooting death of Florida teen Trayvon Martin on February 26, 2012. Stevie Wonder said, I decided today that until the stand your ground law is abolished in Florida, I will never perform there again, Wonder said Sunday while performing in Quebec City. As a matter of fact, wherever I find that law exists, I will not perform in that state or in that part of the world. Some have argued that the law played no role in the acquittal. However, the Atlantic's Ta-Nehisi Coates pointed out that it was cited in the jury instructions. Meanwhile, Wonder also called the fan support of his boycott. The truth is that for those of you who have lost, listen, those of you who've lost in the battle for justice, wherever that fits in any part of the world, we can't bring them back, he said. What we can do is we can let our voices be heard, and we can vote in our various countries throughout the world for change and equality for everybody. That's what I know we can do. Protests have broken out in major U.S. cities, including New York and Los Angeles, since the jury rendered its not guilty verdict last week. Somebody do me a favor, and I don't have this in front of me. If someone could do some research very quickly on what exactly is the stand your ground law that Stevie the Wonder is mentioning in Florida, send that in an email very quickly to me, PastorMikeOnline@gmail.com, and I will be looking for that. Let me put this back one here. Los Angeles Times, from one street in Sanford, Florida to the streets of New York and Los Angeles. In a way, part of the outrage had been about public space. Trayvon Martin, 17, carrying a can of iced tea and a bag of Skittles, was walking home when he was shot dead after a struggle with a neighborhood watch volunteer who had viewed him as suspicious. The death shattered those in Sanford, Florida who knew Martin, but eventually touched strangers who saw a question they would later pose about their sons all over the country. Could a black boy walk home in public without being suspected of a crime? On Sunday, a day after George Zimmerman was found not guilty of murdering Martin in a case that rose to such national import that El Presidente Obama was compelled to remark on the shooting, demonstrators took over public spaces across the country to protest the death of a boy they'd never met. But Martin's name was certainly on their lips, and in contrast with the obscurity from which his death first arose, they brought their cause to some of the most iconic locales in Los Angeles and New York. A Sunday demonstration in Union Square in Lower Manhattan eventually mobilized into a march that pushed past police resistance to reach Times Square about 2 miles away, where tourists gaped at the placard-wielding, chanting demonstrators. The number was rumored to be about more than 1,000. Police wouldn't confirm crowd totals. Some of the chants sounded like echoes of the Occupy Wall Street movement that emerged in Zuccotti Park. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Except that when the demonstrators formed a human microphone to shout a speaker's words throughout the square, they spoke Martin's name instead of shouting down bankers and hedge funders. Let's see here. The article goes on. The night was at times tense, the police shoving reporters and pedestrians, and at times comical, as squadrons of officers in pairs wandered the streets in that muggy heat of New York summer. And so far, and I'm still reading some articles here. Let me check to see if anybody has done their homework on, let's see here, on the, what did I just mention a while ago? The Stand Your Ground law. Looking for some information on that. Just sitting here waiting for you to show up, all right? There have been a few things as far as protesting goes, and I don't have a problem with people protesting. One of the fears that I have had, one of the fears I remain to have, I don't think this thing is done, I don't think it's over with, is if you remember back in the days of the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles. Rodney King was captured on videotape, police beating him senseless, and they had a trial for those policemen. They found them not guilty, and the protests turned quickly into a night of raping, murder, looting, burning buildings down, all sorts of chaos and mayhem. One guy in particular, I think is Reginald Denny, I think that was his name, if you remember, was in the wrong place at the wrong time, had nothing to do with it. They stopped his truck, grabbed him out of the vehicle, beat him practically into a coma for no other reason other than apparently he was there and he was white and they were angry and on and on and on and on. And he had done nothing wrong. And so my fear, and I told Sweetie Pie this Saturday night when the verdict came in, I said, get ready. And the reason why I'm saying that I had a fear of violent protest is not because I think blacks are violent. It has everything to do with what some of the rap artists, what some of the big names in Hollywood and so on were tweeting, were telling that was going to happen. We're going to burn your blankety blank and blanket blank blank blank. That's what we're going to do. And you hear rumors about people saying there's going to be payback, there's going to be this, there's going to be... So it leads people to believe that maybe something bad is going to happen in this world. Somebody's sending me an email now. Hopefully it is information that I can use. The Stand Your Ground laws, let's see here. Stand Your Ground laws are essentially revocation of the duty to retreat. Stand Your Ground laws generally state that under certain circumstances, individuals can use force to defend themselves without first attempting to retreat from the danger. The purpose behind these laws is to remove any confusion about when individuals can defend themselves and to eliminate prosecutions of people who legitimately used self-defense even though they had not attempted to retreat from the threat. In many states with Stand Your Ground laws, a claim of self-defense under a Stand Your Ground law offers immunity from prosecution rather than an affirmative defense. This means that rather than presenting a self-defense argument at an assault trial, for example, an individual could claim self-defense under the state Stand Your Ground law and avoid trial altogether. States with Stand Your Ground laws differ on whether the law applies to instances involving lethal force, with some states retaining the duty to retreat when lethal force is involved and others removing the duty to retreat under all circumstances. Stand Your Ground laws are often criticized as encouraging violence. I got something to say about that. Critics claim that the laws lead to a shoot first, ask questions later attitude that results in more injuries and deaths than would occur without the law. Proponents of Stand Your Ground counter that the laws, and then the email gets cut off, but I get the gist of it. Now, let me tell you, and I make no apologies for this whatsoever. I've covered this ground repeatedly. If you will watch the God, Guns, and Liberty video that we did here, and then the God, Guns, and Liberty conference that we put on here, and with me and Pastor Reg Kelly talking about what's going on in our country and the fact that God, the God in heaven, the God whose Son is Jesus Christ, who died for the sins of all mankind, that God in His Word gives me the